this story. The economy, if the economy sucks, your culture's going to suck. And the politics are going to suck if the culture sucks. So I want to talk about this story that WirePoints did. I'm going to share it with our listeners. Guys, you can see me live in the studio, YouTube, or on Facebook. I'm going to pull up the WirePoints article. At $4.07, Illinois is still the extreme outlier east of the Rockies when it comes to gas prices. Governor J.B. Pritzker, where's the relief? So tell me about the homework y'all did on these gas prices and how we compare to the rest of the nation.
I'll tell you, one of the homeworks I did is I drove down to Florida a couple weeks ago, and when I was somewhere like I think in Kentucky, I filled up and it was $2.99 a gallon, and it's like, wow, finally seeing gas under $3. Excuse me. And then you come up to, of course, around here, and in my neck of the woods where I live, I'm paying something like $4.20. And so we decided, hey, let's just look at the AAA. The AAA tracks gas prices every day across the country, and they have a good map. And they always show. And Illinois is always, with the exception of California, those West Coast states that have really high gas prices, Illinois always has the highest gas prices east of the Rockies. And just whatever it was 2 days ago, we were at $4.07. When you had places like Missouri, 72 cents a gallon cheaper, Kentucky 61 cents cheaper, Iowa 55 cents cheaper, Wisconsin 53 cents cheaper. Why are we paying so much more per gallon than our neighboring states? What's so special about Illinois? And it has to do with taxes, of course. Unfortunately, it has to do with taxes. We have the second highest gas taxes in the country, and under Governor Pritzker, he doubled our gas tax, and we're now extreme. Only California has a higher gas tax than we do. So, that's a big thing. And Governor Pritzker tried to act like he's giving us relief right before the election, saved us a couple of cents for a few months, and that was it. But here we are paying over $4 again when our neighbors are all under $4.
Right. No, and I know it's. I also want to know what contributes to this difference, right? You brought up this doubling the gas tax. Is there a sales tax on top of the gas tax that we're paying that's way higher than everybody else in the nation?
Yeah, so we're one of the few states that has an extra tax, a sales tax on top of it. So here's what happens: there's a flat tax. It used to be 18 cents. It was 19 cents, and Pritzker doubled it to 38 cents. That's the flat tax every time you buy a gallon of gas. But then we also have a sales tax on top of that. So as gas prices go up, so does the sales tax. So that keeps going up. And then Pritzker added a new feature that with inflation each year, he wants to add to the price, and so they pass that. So that's why it's so expensive. And obviously, the higher gas prices go, the higher gas tax goes. And that's just the gas tax element. We're also a very bureaucratic, very expensive state, and so there's other costs in there that are harder for us to measure, but they contribute to us being even higher than all of our neighbors and the rest of the country, frankly.
Yeah, nothing really peeves me off more than paying gas taxes, sale taxes. And I mean, it is getting ridiculous, the gas prices here in the state of Illinois. And like you said, you go down south a little bit and it's just like, wow, why am I living here?
Well, and think about how silly it is too, right? Because if you live near any of these other states, you're not going to fill up in Illinois. You're going to just pop over the border, do your groceries. If you smoke or drink, buy that stuff, and bring it back. And that's what people do. And then you also have truckers. I was talking to a trucker the other day. Truckers fill up right before they get to Illinois, and they wait till they get through Illinois and fill up again on the other side. So, this is high taxes sometimes hurts revenues rather than increase them.
Mm-hmm. I do want to shift gears here. And folks, you're going to be listening to the news today, and there's something in the news today that's kind of disturbing here for our local area, Ted. It's about the Carlock Elementary School, and the future of it remains a little unclear. So Unit 5, it's the 15th largest school district in Illinois. They passed a tax increase. It was a forever referendum. It forever increases your property taxes. Okay, they got that passed. They brought it to referendum. They all voted yes, right, because they threatened to cut things like athletic programs, extracurricular programs. They have restored those things. They passed a resolution, the school board did, saying, yes, we're going to restore these programs. We're not going to make these cuts. However, people are left wondering about the future of Carlock Elementary School. And, I wanted to ask you this. Are teachers worried about this pension crisis that's going on? And are they trying to get the taxpayers to make up for the state's pitfalls? I mean, I don't know. That's what makes me think about this tax referendum. As soon as I saw this, I was like, it's because the state doesn't A, fund them, B, these teachers are probably very worried about their pensions, and they are going to do whatever it takes to keep those. Now that's very speculative on my part, right, Ted? But I want to ask you what you're seeing as far as teachers unions and school districts and how they're dealing with the pension reform and with the pension crisis, I should say.
Yeah, this is a lot bigger than pensions. This is a big battle everywhere in the state. And first thing people should know is we have the strongest teacher unions in the country. We have the strongest union powers, public sector unions in the country. So they don't hesitate to use their power. And the problem is it's gotten really, really expensive for education in Illinois. Taxpayers are paying some of the highest taxes in the country for some of the most expensive schools. We spend the eighth most in the country in Illinois on education per student, and a big part of that is the power of the unions. And of course, Chicago Teachers Union is always the perfect example of how powerful they are. But even across the state, they're using the powers to increase all the costs. The administrative costs have skyrocketed. Pension costs, of course, have been a huge problem. But they've got a situation where they can control parents and control situations in a way that it's become really expensive. And there's no accountability. If you look at results, they're really, really poor across the state. So we're kind of in a mess in education, and there has to be a wholesale change. But it's not going to happen right now under Governor Pritzker because he's pushing for more, billions more for education, as are the unions. And so parents are kind of in last place right now.
Right, and I see this bill, and you've got this story out there, and I wanted to talk about it briefly here. This Senate Bill 1690. This would apply to only Cook County's pension, which holds $13 billion in asset, covering the county's 18,000 current workers plus 20,000 retirees and beneficiaries. It holds just 67% of asset. Actuaries say it should have to meet its liabilities, giving it an unfunded liability of $6.3 billion. So tell me a little bit about this actuarial report and this Senate Bill 1690. It's only for Cook County's pension? I feel
Yeah,
like that's against the equal protection under the law or equal. Why just Cook County?
Yeah, this ties into what you mentioned before, the big problem of pensions. We have a massive problem with pensions. They're the worst funded in the country. Most workers should be very worried because we're not quite sure what's going to happen over the next 20, 30 years. But a few years back, they passed this Tier 2, which was for all new workers in government starting after 2010. They get a lesser pension. Wire Points, we think that pension plan is really unfair to the Tier 2 workers, and it should be made more fair. But what they're trying to do is just improve it in Cook County. And again, that has to do with Robert Martwick, who's a senator. And I don't know why they're focusing only on Cook, but it would be if it works, I'm sure they'll try to do it for the rest of the state. But they're trying to improve it because they're worried about the IRS not being happy with this Tier 2, with the second tier of pensions that we talked about, that it's not fair enough to workers. So this is all part of the big mess. It's complex to explain, but basically they're trying to improve the Tier 2, which is the right thing to do for workers, but it's a messed up thing to do for taxpayers because we already have a pension crisis. If we increase these Tier 2 pensions, that means taxpayers are even more on the hook for the worst pension crisis. So it's a convoluted mess, and we really need to get back to having 401k style plans, some kind of defined contribution plan that makes sense, that everybody knows and is, instead of these pensions. These pensions are unmanageable and they create a massive mess for the state and for taxpayers.
We've got to take a break, but Ted Dabrowski, thank you so much for joining me. Where can people get a hold of you, and where can they find Wire Point's content?
Yeah, just go to wirepoints.org and sign up for our newsletter. And of course, you can find us on social at Wirepoints.
Wonderful. Ted Dabrowski, thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Kat.
He is the best, folks. I'm telling you, he does all the best data, has the best data out there. You guys are going to want to check out wirepoints.org. What did we talk about? We talked about the Chicago crime. We talked about the gas prices. Then we also talked about pension reform and this bill that's addressing the Illinois Tier 2 pension law. So we're going to talk more on the other side. Coming up, I do want to talk about this Kansas City shooting, everything that I know. I want you to know this is a tragic incident. I want to unpack it here next. Hey, good morning, folks. Working very, very hard to bring you the facts here on Cities 92.9, the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me. I so do appreciate you tuning in every day and visiting our advertisers. Before we took the break, we were talking with Ted Dabrowski about a few things. We talked about the Chicago crime, and I've got a story here about a Chicago couple that was randomly beaten in this mob rioting that broke out in Chicago over this past weekend. I feel like the media is not covering this enough. There was a savage assault. This video has gone viral on social media. It's multiple black men ganging up on this couple. It's an interracial couple, white woman, black man, and they just spilled their guts to Fox News about their terrifying ordeal. And they tell their story, and they say that they thought that they were going to die. And if you were to watch this video, this savage assault, you would think that they were dead. I mean, they were surrounded by a bunch of young black teenagers, men, and they were beating on this just random Chicago couple. I'm going to get into that story here coming up in just a little bit. I also will talk about these AP history textbooks. They're already lying about President Donald Trump. It's just full of inaccuracies and bias, leftist bias, and it's already in the education materials of your children. And folks, I'm going to get on my soapbox here, and then I'm going to get off. I'm sick and tired, and I'm not saying the people. I'm more so saying the politicians who claim they're conservatives and the politicians who claim they're Republicans for not doing more to protect our children from these leftist, Trantifa, BLM activists, from these teachers who call themselves activists. We need to be doing more to protect our children, because rewriting history should be, these people should be locked up. Everybody who wrote this AP history textbook that lied about President Donald Trump, lied about the January 6th insurrection, lied about insurrection, lied about all kinds of things. They didn't mention the Steele dossier. They say that President Donald Trump is racist in a history book. History is truly written by the victors. Don't forget it. And I'm really upset with conservatives. Not so much the people, but the politicians, the leaders, the conservative leaders, who don't do more to stop this sort of nonsense. School board members, what's wrong with you? Are you vetting your textbooks? Are you vetting them? Because we should not allow history to be rewritten and to be manipulated and to just have history books outright lie to children about things that actually happened. So I'm going to dig into that here coming up in just a little bit. And I'm really starting to get upset. And don't contribute. Look, if you're a conservative and you are taking your kid to the public school system every day, and I understand, I get it. I'm not trying to rip on you or anything. But I want you to know that you're contributing to a system that, you know, your kid could come home one day and say, you know what, Mom, I think I'm a girl, and he's actually a boy, right? And he could come home to one day and say, I want to get transition. And, you know, I'm upset with you. And I can't believe you voted for Trump. I can't believe that you have a Trump 2024 sign in your yard. They're pitting your kids against you. And whose fault is that really at the end of the day? It would be yours if you're continuing to bring your child to these types of places, these indoctrination public school camps. That's what and I hate being brutally honest, but that's exactly what this is they are indoctrination camps. And if you contribute, you should not be surprised if your kid comes home and starts to hate you. You know what they're doing. You know the educational materials that they're using are just straight up lies, and it's straight up pornography. Some of it, right? And you have to be fully aware of this, and I hope that I do a good job trying to make you fully aware, so that way you can make a decision to take your kids out of these public schools. And I will continue to say that. Later, I am going to get into that Chicago couple that was randomly beaten in Chicago over the weekend. First, let's get into this story. Kansas City, Missouri, the shooting. Everybody's talking about it, and I want to bring you the truth, and I want to reveal everything that I know, what we know about this tragic incident so far Here we go. Take a listen.
An 84-year-old white Kansas City man is now facing 2 felony charges and, if found guilty, life in prison after a shooting that has grabbed the nation's attention. According to family and lawyers for 16-year-old black teenager Ralph Yarl, it happened when he was trying to pick up his brothers one night last week. They say he accidentally rang the wrong doorbell, and the man inside shot him in the head and the arm. He had to run to 3 different houses before someone would help him. That has led to protests over the weekend and a massive outpouring of support on social media. A GoFundMe for Yarl's hospital bill has surpassed $2 million. He has been released from the hospital, thank goodness, but has a long recovery ahead.
So everybody's talking about this. Look, this should not be a national news story, and they have created it to be a national news story because they want to cause racial tensions in America. Bottom line. CNN has reported on this story specifically about 57 times, over 50 times. And you want to know how often they've talked about the Chicago shootings, about the 2 kids that were shot, one in the arm, one in the leg over the weekend. You want to know if they were talking about this Chicago couple that was this white woman was actually beaten by a pack of black young teenagers in Chicago? A pack. It was like at least 10, right? There's no racial tension there. There's no headline that says black men beat white woman. There's no headline like that on CNN because they only want to cause racial tension here with this story where we've got the headline coming out, white man shoots black teen or black kid. That's what they're trying to do, is cause racial tension. And CNN has already reported on this story specifically over 50 times. Articles, clippings, right? That's the ratio to their coverage of this story in comparison to what's going on in Chicago. More death, more people involved in that story. In that story, they've only covered the Chicago weekend about 9 times. So I want to get into the facts here. Everybody's talking about this, and they want you to focus on the race narrative. We're going to pull ourselves out of that. And when it comes to these situations, you have to figure out what happened. What happened? The facts surrounding this story and what you need to know. We have the probable cause statements, and that's what I'm going to be using here. Nobody else in the media will give you this information because it doesn't line up with the race narrative. So this happened late April 13th, Kansas City, Missouri. Upon arrival, they located one male victim who was shot a couple of times. Now, there was a party who called this in to 911, and they said that they believed that a man was shot, and the man who was shot was a home invader. Now, we've got an 84-year-old man. His name's Andrew Lester. He called the police soon after firing these 2 shots. The victim's name is Ralph Yarl. You've been hearing it here in the Fox News updates. And after firing these 2 shots, he called police like immediately afterwards. And then when the cops came to Lester's residence, he consented to a search. So what did the officers write about their observations? The officer wrote, "I observed the front storm glass broken." So it's a front storm door and there's glass there. And it was broken. So there was an interior door and then there was a storm door with glass. And he said that the glass was broken and that there was blood on the front porch. He says, "I observed blood on the driveway and I observed cameras on the south and east side of the residence. I also saw blood in the front of this neighbor's house." I'm not going to give addresses on the air, but it was the neighbor's house of Lester. And a witness who was interviewed said that they had heard an unknown vehicle pull into the driveway into the driveway of the address of Lester. And the witness said that it was odd that this elderly neighbor of theirs had a visitor that late at night. Now, the witness stated that they had heard 2 to 3 gunshots from the address. And then the witness stated that he heard the victim yell out that he had been shot. And then he observed the victim. At this point, he can see it. He didn't see the shooting. He just heard everything. And then at this point, after the victim was shot, Ralph was shot, he saw the victim going door to door to door asking for help. So I thought to myself, wait, the cameras, the cops observed cameras. Was this on video? We need to get this on video. As tragic as it is, the video will help us. But it turns out in this report here, the probable cause statements, they weren't working, the cameras. The system wasn't functional for years. So Lester told the police that he'd talk with them, and he talked with the police without a lawyer. Real quickly, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. Do not ever do that. Don't ever talk to police officers without a lawyer present. Just saying, don't ever do that. Know your rights. He stated that he had just laid down for the night and that he had heard the doorbell ring. So he grabbed his gun. It's a .32 Smith & Wesson 1888 revolver. It's an older gun. He stayed within his residence, and then he opened the main interior door, and then he saw a 6-foot man pulling on the exterior door. He stated that he thought somebody was trying to break into his house. He stated that he opened the interior door, shot twice, and within a few seconds of opening that interior door, that's when he fired the shots. It was just a few seconds. There's not an actual transcript of Lester and his phrasing and what exactly he told the cops. What I'm talking about right now is a probable cause statement. This was written up by the police and given to the prosecutor. So, if you remember, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, there was a lot that was left out because this is not the actual transcript. The media, they didn't get the actual transcript. They didn't have the actual phrasing of Kyle Rittenhouse. Same in this case. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more that's being left out. This is not the phrasing of Lester. This is the phrasing of police officers who were witness to a conversation that they had with Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old who shot Ralph. Now, Lester called 911 immediately, and then also, this is important to note, Lester was let go. So the cops that night, right, they said that, well, we're going to let you go. We thought that you had probable cause to shoot Ralph in self-defense. Now, there is one significant difference here between the probable cause statement and statement given by Ralph. Ralph said that the man who shot him, right, had yelled out and had said, don't come around here, or don't come around here again, or something to that effect. Now, Lester called the police immediately after, and he said that like I said, this is the probable cause statement. So this is accounts from the police officers given to the prosecutor. Lester said that he was scared to death because of the man's size and age. And given that, he's 84 years old, he would not have been able to protect himself had the man entered into his home. And he thought that this was justified, right? A justified shooting. The cops did too at first, and then they're bringing him in and stuff like that. So there's a lot surrounding this case. There's all kinds of stories coming out about this now. Joe Biden actually inviting Ralph to the White House, which was crazy to me, being that he snubbed Nashville and the Nashville families. So that's a story that's coming out after this. And then I also saw this, the Washington Post, Compost, they retracted a false statement. So there's a lot of things that the media just throws out there hoping that it will stick. The Washington Post actually this morning, coming out, breaking last night, they retracted a false statement where they said Ralph Yarl was killed in this Missouri shooting. Ralph is not dead. He has a long, long road of recovery, I'm sure, ahead of him. He was shot twice. It's a sad, tragic incident, and folks, we don't know. That's my whole point in bringing you the probable cause statement, is that we don't know. The first thing that the media wants to do is paint this race narrative And you have to pull yourself out of that and just listen to the facts, listen to what happened, and not listen to what the media is saying about it, because it is just categorically false, and they are making a mountain out of a molehill. This should not be national news. This was an incident, and it's a tragic incident at that. On the other side, I'm going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz.
sometimes before our home ever hits the market. The average real estate agent works hard to sell a home every month. Our agents sell a house every 8 hours. When you're ready for a change, go to remaxrising.com.
Hey, this is Daniel from LKM Mowing and Landscaping. Every spring, homeowners wonder, will my turf and plants be healthy and robust this year? Cut down the doubt and turn to the professionals at LKM Mowing and Landscaping. We have perfected the formula for a great-looking lawn that stays healthy year after year. Through precision mowing, tentative weed control, and proper pruning, your turf and landscape will look brand new. Your yard should be your happy place, not another headache. Browse maintenance options at lkmlandscaping.com today.
At Summers Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, we care about your home health and safety issues as much as you do. So right now, we're offering a free service call on any paid repair. This $99 value will help give you the peace of mind and safety you crave for your home. No matter whether you're trying to beat the heat in the summer or staying warm and cozy in the winter, or just want to improve your indoor air and home health, this free service call on
Woo! Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Look, they're a bunch of hypocrites, okay? They're hypocrites. And I'm going to go through some leftist hypocrisies here. And we're just going to go through some claims that they've got and some truths that I've got, okay? And coming up here in just a little bit, we are going to be getting into this story about a Chicago couple. They were attacked. And they're speaking out. A Chicago couple was randomly beaten in this mob rioting that broke out in Chicago over the weekend. And there's video of this savage assault, and it's gone viral on social media. And on Tuesday, there was a pair yesterday, this couple. They told their story to Fox News, and the video's graphic. I'm going to play that video for you on Facebook Live, YouTube. You can see the video itself. Their names are Ashley and DJ. So I'm going to go through that story also. I wanted to bring this story up. I've talked about it before, but it needs to be mentioned again. And I've got new developments from it from the Bloomington Police Department. Indicted alleged sexual predator Michelle Blessant is identifying as a woman. And the Bloomington Police, they're treating this arrest as a woman, because that's how Michelle Blessant identifies. That's according to Brant Parsley of the Bloomington Police. Talked with him over the phone. This is a heinous crime, folks, that he is being accused of. And, Illinois law states that sexual assault is different than sexual abuse. This guy has 5 different counts of sexual assault charges against him right now. And I questioned them. They said that the biology of Blessant, when asked about it, they said that they were unsure about the biology of this individual and that the department is not experienced in saying something offensive. Okay. Used to go by James, this guy. It's sexual assault of somebody under the age of 13. I don't know why we care about being offensive. I understand why the Bloomington Police Department can't be offensive. I understand that they want to keep their jobs. However, when we concede ground, when it comes to reality, that has long-lasting effects on society. Long-lasting effects. One of the lies, the hypocrisies coming from the left, they say that this is a claim, we want a humane immigration system. The truth about that, left-wing neglect of the border has fueled an unprecedented surge of human trafficking, rape, slavery, and murder along the U.S. border. So, They claim that they want humane immigration system. The truth is that they've neglected that border, and that's fueled an unprecedented surge of drugs, human trafficking, slavery, murder, all of it at the southern border in the United States. I'm going to be back here on the other side. We'll also get into Governor DeSantis pushing back against Dylan Mulvaney, and Matt Walsh is a fan. Hey, good morning, folks. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me live here on Facebook. There's so many things that I want to talk about this morning, but one of the things, and comments, throw in the comments if you are a resident here with, or you take your kids to Carlock Elementary School. This is a very concerning story. So, at the last Unit 5 school board meeting, there was no mention of the Carlock Elementary School. So, like the Carlock Elementary School, the athletic programs, the extracurricular programs, they were all on the chopping block if the Unit 5 school district did not pass this referendum. So, the athletic programs, the extracurriculars have all been restored. But that's leaving a lot of people unsure about the future of Carlock Elementary. Now, here's my initial reaction to this. The reason why Kristen Weichel, the superintendent, says this, well, the board didn't take any action on Carlac. That was something if we had to continue to make reductions down the road. So, based on Weichel's comment there, it appears that the future of Carlock continues to remain uncertain. So, Carlock Mayor, Rhonda Bear, she says, I think it provides some sense of relief. I don't think it provides total relief. Unit 5 has definitely not said that Carlock School is off the chopping block after passing this tax referendum that I'm aware of. So there is a potential for them to still decide to close down the school. And that's the thing, too, that I want to point out the passage of this Unit 5 tax referendum that increases your taxes by a lot, folks. Um, One thing that I want to inform you of is that before this passage, there was no definitive, hey, if this passes, we're going to roll back the cuts to the athletic program, we're going to roll back the cuts to the extracurriculars, and we're going to roll back the cutting of Carlock or the closing down of Carlock Elementary. My gut reaction to this, maybe I'm wrong, and I hope that I'm wrong. I haven't pulled the numbers on this, but I could imagine, I could foresee, and I know this to be true of the last election for this tax referendum when they tried to pass it in the fall. They got it passed here in the spring in the municipal election. When they did this in the fall, I know that that area, Carlock Elementary, those voters over there did not vote yes. It's a rural area, right? And they did not vote yes for the tax referendum this go around. Sorry, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. But I would imagine that there's people out there that could see this and say, am I saying it? Yes. Um, Perhaps they are keeping the Carlock Elementary School on the chopping block as punishment or as revenge. I would not doubt that. These people are 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 angry that it didn't pass the first time, and they got their pass the second time. But maybe they know the numbers better than I do, as far as if Carlock um, voted for this, and maybe they didn't. And if they didn't, maybe withholding that school and keeping that school on the chopping block is a form of punishment. Who knows, right? What are your thoughts on it? That's my initial gut reaction. It's my opinion, right? I don't know. It's speculative. It's not anything, and I can do that here on YouTube. I'm not on air right now. I'm not trying to speculate, but That's my feelings on it. Your feelings on the keeping the car lock on the chopping block. I mean, I just don't think that's right. I am going to get into some more local news here coming up. They'll claim this, folks, the leftists. The hypocrisy is in full force. They're going to claim this, and I want to bring some truth to it, okay? The roads are racist. That's what they'll say. The truth is that black roadway fatalities are up post George Floyd riots because cops stopped pulling over reckless black drivers. That's the truth. Claim conservatives are prudes. Truth. Leftists are perverts. There, I said it. Claim, we need to ban assault weapons. That's what the leftists will say. The truth, assault weapons aren't a thing. Okay? Also, urban gangs kill magnitudes more people with handguns than the rest of America kills with rifles. Okay? So these gangs in Chicago, right, they're killing people with handguns. One claim that they've got, we want our public schools to be excellent. That's what they'll tell you. The truth is they force poor kids to attend failing schools and protect bad teachers from getting fired via powerful unions. They oversee generational decline in test scores and total collapse of school discipline. They don't discipline, and we're starting to see a generational decline in test scores. And they don't get rid of the bad teachers, and we're starting to see our schools fail. They force poor kids to attend failing schools. That's so clear with our evidence-based funding. I do want to get into the story here about Carlock Elementary. It's concerning that we've got Christian Weichel on tape saying, well, the board didn't take any action on Carlock. That was something if we had to continue to make reductions down the road. So, the mayor of Colorado coming out and says, it provides some sort of relief, these comments of Kristen Weichels, the superintendent, but she says that it doesn't provide total relief. Unit 5 has not definitely come out and said that Carlock is off the chopping block after passing this tax increase. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Why are they continuing to keep Carlock Elementary on the chopping block, but they rolled back the cuts for the athletic department or the athletic programs and the extracurricular programs? Let me know on the buzz line, 309-451-9299. What are we talking about this morning? A little bit later in the show, I do want to get into this. Greg Price has an amazing Substack out there. I want to look into the news that this AP history textbook, they're already lying about President Trump. It's full of inaccuracies, these AP history textbooks, and they're lying to your kids. They're filling educational materials with bias. History is truly written by the victors. Remember that, because all of these history books are lying, and the victors are writing them. I do want to talk about this story, and we're going to get into it here now. Chicago couple was randomly beaten in this mob rioting that broke out in Chicago over the weekend. And there's this video of a savage assault, and it's gone viral on social media. It's multiple, I think about 10 black young men. There's some black young women in there as well, teenagers, who are beating up on this couple. And the pair told their story of their terrifying ordeal and how they thought that they were going to die. Folks, if you want to see the video, you can tune in via Facebook or YouTube Live. I'm going to be playing it here for you, but the audio itself is just telling. Here we go. So you can just hear the chaos there. And this woman was savagely beaten. She was white. And this was multiple black teenagers. This is a hostile teen takeover of the city of Chicago. And this is not getting nearly enough attention. And I think it's telling when we have CNN constantly talking about Andrew Lester, and Ralph Yarl, this incident, right, which is tragic. Yes. Do I think it should be national news? Absolutely not. This is national news. What's going on in Chicago is national news because this is a mob and they're rioting and it's teenagers and it's affecting way more people. And the nation needs to be made aware of what's going on in Chicago. So this couple, and it's a white girl and a black man, and they went and they told their story. Their names are Ashley and DJ. And they said that they were just trying to get some food when they found themselves in the midst of this chaos that has overtaken the Loop District of Chicago for several consecutive nights. This has been going on for a long time. It's still going on. Participants appearing to be mostly young people, stomped on buses, smashed cars, windshields, trashed property, attacked strangers. These participants in these riots, they're mostly young people, and they're stomping on buses. So they're getting on top of city buses. They're smashing car windshields with baseball bats. On Saturday night alone, 2 teens were shot and 15 people were arrested. Someone in the crowd pushed Ashley when they were just trying to get some food, and they found themselves in this mess. This was middle of the day. It wasn't like they were out there at night trying to provoke anybody. This was middle of the day. You can see that very clearly from the clip. And when he asked who did it, things went south. When DJ, the guy, her boyfriend of Ashley, asked who pushed her in this crowd, they found themselves in the midst of this crowd. Things went south. Here we go.
Moments ago, I was able to speak to the couple that were at the center of that now viral attack on the streets of Chicago over the weekend. They described what happened in their own words. Listen.
Well, I just recently saw the video, but we were just downtown in Chicago trying to shop, trying to get some food. And we were walking down the street, and there was a really big group of guys, a really big group of people.
And girls.
Yeah, guys and girls. And, DJ had my hand, and he was trying to lead me through the crowd of people. And they pushed him, they pushed me. And as soon as they pushed me, I told DJ, I said, hey, they just shoved me. And he asked them, he was like, yo, don't shove her, who shoved her? And as soon as he said that, everything went crazy. They said they're gonna kill us. They turned around and, started fighting,
So sorry
I got pushed down to the ground, and I got pushed down to the ground, and the whole group of people went to DJ, not me. Like, I have a lot less injuries than he does because I was more of a bystander than anything, but everyone went for him and it ended up in the middle of the street. They were jumping him in the middle of the street. It got pretty bad.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is a graphic video that's going around and that is viral right now. Something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. This outlandish behavior should not be sympathized with or tolerated. It's not about opportunity or privilege. It's about total anarchy. And it was predictable. When you defund the police, lower crimes in some states from felonies to misdemeanors, right? When you remove cash bail requirements, you turn the justice system into revolving doors of criminality. And you get roaming gangs of youth randomly attacking innocent people on the streets of one of our formerly great cities. Chicago was so cool. I loved going there as a kid. There's no way I'm going there now. And I'm just glad Ashley and DJ are okay, because that could have turned really ugly really fast. But this is what happens when you defund the police, when you have George Soros-backed DAs taking felonies and bumping them down to misdemeanors. This is what happens when you remove cash bail requirements. You have completely turned our justice system into a joke. And this sort of behavior, the outlandish behavior coming from these teenagers in that city, is only going to escalate. And they are emboldened now. 309-451-9299. I do want to shift gears here on the Morning Buzz. My name's Kat Peterson, bringing you this story, me, from the city's 92.9 newsroom. I talked with the Bloomington Police Department, and it kind of deals with what I'm talking about today as far as our justice system. We should not be making a mockery of our justice system. We should be accurately reporting things, and we should be not risking, not concerned with being offensive, right, in our police reports. But we live in clown world, and this is where we're at. City's 92.9. We discovered some conflicting reports about this alleged child sex predator. He's been charged 5 counts, sex assault of a victim under the age of 13. He goes by the name, I'm not going to refer to him as Michelle Blessant, because me personally, I don't refer to people by their legal name, even if they change it, because I live in reality and I'm not going to concede ground when it comes to reality. I live in reality and it's important to me. So his name's James, and I'm not affirming his mental illness, gender dysphoria, whatever this man has. Okay, so he changed his name from James Blessant to Michelle Blessant. So the Bloomington police are referring to James as Michelle because that's his legally changed name. I understand that. The arrest warrant uses the name Michelle because that's his new legal name. This is uncharted territory for the police department, says Brant Parsley of the police department. Now, Parsley said that they're treating this arrest as if he is a woman because that's how Michelle Blessant identifies. Now, this might be a conversation for our state's attorney, Erica Reynolds. I would like to ask her this question. Will he be put into being upon sentencing? His arraignment is April 28th. I'm going to stay up to date on this story. Is he going to be put into a female prison? And when I asked about the biology of Michelle Blessant, they were not very forthcoming. They were unsure of the biology. That's what the Bloomington Police Department spokesperson told me, is that the department is, quote, not experienced in saying something, quote, offensive. So they were trying to avoid being offensive when I asked about the biology. And the only reason why I asked about the biology of this victim and of this perpetrator is because it matters, because we have a victim here of sexual assault. Now, sexual assault, Parsley did say, is different than sexual abuse because it's got to deal with penetration, sexual penetration by force, or in a situation where the victim cannot give consent. Now, that can be a lot of other things, right? Obviously, he did confirm that the alleged victim is under 13 and that there have been multiple reports made, and there's been a an extensive investigation done by the Bloomington Police Department. Here's my thing. For the victim's sake, we need to be as accurate as possible. If the guy has male genitalia, then we need to call him a male. Because, God forbid, this victim grows up, sees all these news reports about how a woman sexually assaulted this victim. I don't know the victim, a boy, girl, I don't know. Under the age of 13, grows up, starts to read about this, and I'm sure, this is going to stick with that victim for the rest of his life or her life. We need to be accurate for the victim's sake and for other sexual assault victims' sake. We don't need to be worried about being offensive to alleged sexual predators. Okay? That is not something that should be on our radar. It should also be noted, I am going to note this. Now, I don't know what this case was all about in 2014. I do know that there was a domestic violence case in 2014 where Anthony Blessant, a family member of James Blessant, was the victim in this domestic violence case. Now, the case was dismissed because James Blessant was never prosecuted in that domestic battery case. And the case was not prosecuted as the victim declined prosecution. Now, I don't know as far as, what the police could have done any more in that case, if they could have done anything more in that case. But it's worth noting that he was known to the police. He's had multiple run-ins with the police, has several traffic violations as far as driving on suspended license, driving very, very high speed limits, over the speed limit. So he's been known to the police for quite some time, has had multiple run-ins with the police. And most recently, this April case, 2023, the 5 counts of sexual assault, a child sexual assault, kid under 13. Now, I do want to shift gears. I want to talk about Ron DeSantis pushing back against Dylan Mulvaney, and Matt Walsh is a total fan of this. On the heels of this Bud Light boycott, Donald Trump Jr. Really, made me completely lose my mind because he came out, Donald Trump Jr., saying that we should stop the boycott. I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about Governor Ron DeSantis going after Dylan Mulvaney. And I think that this is probably the strongest I've heard a politician come out against the trans ideology and against transgenderism. This is probably the strongest bit of audio from a politician I've ever heard on the issue. That's next on the Morning Buzz.
They're not paying attention.
Okay, wanna address this one. It's probably has to do. This is Colson. Has to do with the Donald Trump. I know Colson is a troll, likes to troll the page. I will address this one. Where I talk about the AP history textbooks. Greg Price coming out with a Substack. He's reviewed a lot of AP textbooks. They're very anti-Trump, editorializing. There's false narratives. So you say what bias, right? I take it you mean, we're biased here at Cities 92.9. And yes, I will say that we're biased here at Cities 92.9, but we can be. And here's the reason why. We're an entertainment platform and we serve an audience, and we serve a specific audience. And we can do that. And we're very open about that. We don't try to portray ourselves as quote, quote, non-biased media, right? The thing is here, this is a textbook, and you're rewriting history, and you're being biased when it comes to facts and history. And it's important to note here, Colson, that when you have people who do this, they're typically not the good guys. So Greg Price, and I'll share this, guys, with you, and I would definitely share this with your friends. This is a Substack by Greg Price. So he's done the work on this, the homework, and he's found a list of textbooks that meet the AP course audit curricular requirements. So this is the College Board list of textbooks. So all these textbooks could possibly make their way into the classroom. Okay, um, and don't be shocked when your kid brings home something that says things and leaves out all the details about how the Trump Russia narrative, media narrative, is totally unraveled. None of it mentions the phony Steele dossier. The FBI used FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, to spy on Donald Trump's campaign. The illegal unmasking of Michael Flynn, how officials lied, including Adam Schiff, to the public about the Russia collusion, and the role the Hillary Clinton campaign played in feeding false Trump Russia stories to the press. So it totally doesn't mention any of that. Many books also cover the in-depth, the unproven sexual misconduct allegations against President Donald Trump and Justin Clarence Thomas. They are unproven. That is factual. They are unproven. They also leave out all of the information surrounding Bill Clinton. Many similar allegations against Bill Clinton. That's bias. There's been debunked narratives about this shooting specifically. This did not happen, right? The hands up, don't shoot narrative was completely fabricated. And they lie, and they said that it was they are rewriting history, and this is dangerous because these are your kids, and they're subject to these types of to this type of indoctrination. So that's a Substack that I wanted to share with you. Get your kids out of public school. When your kids come home and say, "Mom, I want to be a girl," and he's a boy, and when they come home and they say that they hate the public schools and that they hate you, don't be surprised if your kid is struggling when they come home after school. It's because of things like this, where they lie in the history books, where they continuously shove the LGBTQ trans agenda down their throats via the books, pornography that is in the classroom materials of the Haworth School District, right? On their website, they had literal porn. And I think it's so funny. People have tried to say that the Pornhub documentary was not pornography within the first 5 minutes. And I'm not going to spare details because I am on YouTube, right? And this is not safe for kids. So if kids are watching, mute it. The first 5 minutes of this Pornhub documentary, that was within the school district reading materials assigned to students the age of 14 years old. Within 5 minutes of watching this documentary, there was a woman on screen having an orgasm. Like, that is straight up pornography, okay? And you can't have it in schools. And the teacher was fired, so therefore there was some sort of understanding that there was something wrong done by this teacher. So it's not just me saying it. It was the school board who came to the decision on this separation agreement. But get your kids out of public schools. I'm going to be back here. We're going to talk a little bit about Ron DeSantis. They'll tell you we're all about the care. We care about the health and the well-being of the kids. That's what they'll say, right? That's what they will say. They will claim We care about the health and the well-being of children. The truth is, they rip children away from their parents with state-sanctioned kidnapping. They advocate for genital mutilation of minors. That's the truth of the matter, folks. They say they're for the, we care about the kids. We care about the kids. We care about their health. But really what you're doing, you're ripping them away from their parents. This is state-sanctioned kidnapping, what's going on in Washington State and in California, those two bills. And now with this story, wow. Let's look into the news here. These AP history textbooks, Greg Price, he's incredible, folks. He's reviewed 5 high school AP, Associated Press, U.S. history books. I think it's Associated Press. Yeah. Yep. I'll look into that. But it's AP U.S. history textbooks that cover all the way through the Trump presidency. They cover the Trump presidency in these history books. The historians who wrote these books, they put their liberal bias on full display, and what they included and what they left out, he found it. And there's a Substack out there by Greg Price. I'm going to go through it here on the Morning Buzz coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But first, let's take a listen to Ron DeSantis. I think that this is the strongest piece of audio from a politician. This is the strongest statement from a politician I've heard so far about the trans agenda. And Governor Ron DeSantis just completely pushing back against Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney is that trans TikToker who is the spokesperson for Bud Light. There's this Bud Light controversy. Donald Trump Jr., he came out and said something about it. Let's take a listen to Ron DeSantis. Here we go.
Asking about the greater issue of transgenderism, Dylan Mulvaney, of course, is what kicked all of this off. What do you think about men taking the role of women and taking really women's places in advertising, in sports, playing against them? And this seems like an existential threat to women and
total fraud.
As fathers of daughters.
You have a swimmer that competes on the men's team for 3 years at Penn and then switches to the women's team and then wins the 500-yard freestyle national championship for women when you're a mediocre male swimmer and now you win the women's. And so you had a second place finisher. She was actually from Sarasota. She should have been the national champion. I did a proclamation from our office saying she was the best woman swimmer in 500 yard because she was. And so some of this is, yes, it's taking away opportunities in athletics and some other stuff, and that's really, really important. But I think there's also just the issue of, are we going to be a society based on truth, or are we going to be a society based on deceit? And if you take a man and they dress up as a woman and you tell me I have to accept that they're a woman, then you're asking me to be complicit in a lie. And I just refuse to do that. So we've got to tell the truth. I think, the truth will set you free. And let's just be honest about what's going on here. That swimmer was not the best women's 500-yard champion. Okay, the number 2 one was the best women. So that's just the bottom line. But I've got 6-year-old daughter, 5-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter. The 3-year-old just started T-ball. She's whacking the ball.
Yeah.
They're good athletes. They like to do different things. So you want to have opportunities. And we got on this very early in Florida. We did this a couple years ago.
So that's Ron DeSantis. And folks, I love what Matt Walsh says here, and he retweeted it right away, and he says, look, I'm not interested in any Republican who isn't direct and honest about the trans agenda. And you shouldn't be interested in Republicans who are willing to lie about this issue and call men women. Because it's just, when you concede ground to reality, when you concede that ground and you give up reality and you say, yeah, you're right, reality, it just doesn't exist, or it's arbitrary and it doesn't matter. Then I mean, what's the point? If we can't even agree on objective truth, then what's the point? Ron DeSantis, amazing. Coming up here in the 8 o'clock hour as well, we'll be talking with the Tazewell County Republican chair about how Ron DeSantis will be coming here to Peoria, to Central Illinois. He's coming to Peoria to speak. So I will keep you updated here throughout the show. Up next, this is the Morning Buzz, and Scott Robbins will be joining me. There's two genders, Scott Robbins, here on the Morning Buzz. There's just two. There's just two. That's the reality of it. There's only two. There's not 700 different genders.
They're not, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Again, it doesn't have any meaning. None of these things have any meaning, real meaning, outside of the little club and how you get yelled at if you're anti-trans or whatever that is now. That's replaced racism, by the way. I think that's the new buzzword now. You're anti-trans.
You're anti-trans.
You're anti-trans, yeah. And
anti-trans.
And can I just tell you something? I mean, I think I'm with most Americans on this one. I think I am anyway. I'm just going to ask you, if you're listening to this show right now, I'll ask the question. I'll ask the question of any adult. Do you believe that children can make their own decisions on whether or not they're a boy or a girl at the age of 5, 8, 10, 15? What's the age? Shouldn't there be some sort of protection there? We don't let kids smoke until they're 21. You can't buy a legal pack of cigarettes until you're 21.
Yep.
You can't buy liquor at 21. Why do we do this? We do this to protect kids from the harmful nature of those vices, if misused. That's why we do it. We do it to protect children. Why don't we let kids who want to drive at 5? Well, there's a reason for that, because they're not old enough to. But we let them change their gender forever because they say they want to, or we say they should want to. This is all I'm asking. If you want a boy becomes a girl becomes a boy, and you're 19, 20 years old and you've made this decision, I think it's probably one you're going to regret eventually. However, let me not step in the way. Also, I would love to know who's paying for this and how much does it cost? How much does gender reassignment surgery cost?
Millions.
Now, I'm going to say you're probably right, Kat. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that because, quite frankly, I don't know. No one's ever talked about it. And if you're unable to come up for, or insurance paying for this, I mean, is my health insurance policy paying for this? I don't know. I can't answer that. And if not, is the state paying for it or the federal government paying for it? These are all things I really want to, I really want to know, because it seems so popular now with all the cool kids that are becoming cool kids of the other sex. I don't know who's paying for this.
Oh, it's a social contagion, 100%. I think
I
they've
agree with
done
you.
studies on it, and it shows that if your friends come out as transgender, you're 60 times more likely to come out as transgender yourself.
Yeah, and again, if you're an adult,
it's a popularity thing or whatever.
If you're an adult, I don't care. Our job is to protect children, and that's why we put things in place. That's why we have age restrictions on things. That's why there's an age restriction on when you can get a credit card. I want a credit card when I'm 6. Well, you can't have one because you're not old enough to get one. Why? I think I am, therefore I am. If you apply this logic to anything else, it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. And that's what I'm telling you. Why are we applying the logic to this and saying, well, that's totally okay? And we're not doing with everything else. Mm-hmm. My kid's old enough to smoke Marlboros at 6. He wants to. Well, no, we can't allow that. That's not legal. I mean, it's just insane that we're having these conversations, but we are. And then we're having conversations with parents right now. And again, if you're a parent, grandparent of a female athlete, Kat, you were a female athlete. Mm-hmm. You got. Don't you have to look hard at this and say, "Hey, this isn't right."
They're erasing women.
That these men are claiming they're women and then able to participate, like it was mentioned with Matt Walsh, a mediocre men in college sports, high school sports, and it's going to happen there too. We're going to have decisions to make at all these schools because at one point, Unit 5, District 87, whatever, going to have to decide whether or not they're going to allow a boy to participate with girls, because there's by the way, nobody's hiding anymore. All right, this is the cool kid stuff, right? This is what's going on, and it's going to happen. I've mentioned the WNBA several times. There's a bunch of mediocre, okay, they played in D2 basketball in college or even if they were D1 in college, they'd make the NBA. Very few do, but they still don't want a real job. So I'll just go play basketball in the WNBA for a few years, grab a $500,000 or whatever, and move on, and enjoy the rest of my life. What's to stop that from happening? And the woke WNBA would almost have to accept it. Mm-hmm. They don't have a choice. So what happens when that happens? What happens when all this happens? Now, this never going to happen. Well, it will. And I bring that up because I read the story yesterday. The Basketball Australia is the governing body of the sport in basketball. And they have this elite and sub-elite basketball, including NBL, they call it NBL 1 South, which serves as sort of a lower tier below the National Basketball League and the Women's National Basketball League, kind of like the WNBA, right? Now, yesterday they had to they had to figure out what they were going to do because you know what happened? A guy wanted to play with them. A guy named Lexi Rogers. The governing body ruled that Lexi Rogers is ineligible to compete. Well, why? Well, first, on behalf of the Basketball Australia, I'd like to acknowledge and sincerely thank Lexi for her cooperation, understanding, and patience throughout the process. It's a complex space that continues to evolve. Lexi is disappointed with this outcome, but I know she'll continue to support the team throughout the season and be an active member of the basketball community. Now, you start laying out tolerance and frameworks and all that stuff, and there was a decision made, a good one, I think, in this case, in Australia, that, hey, no, we're not going to allow this to happen because it did happen. And I've been talking about this forever. What happens if a kid who can't make the baseball team decides he's a girl and plays softball and dominates? And that's not a slap against women's athletics because it's come a long way. I'm a big proponent of women's athletics. My granddaughter is an athlete, is a college athlete now. One of my granddaughters is a college scholarship athlete. She plays volleyball. Now, just imagine if she was competing against guys. But we're supposed to just accept this and never question it? No, I can't do that. Okay, University of California, San Diego, Kat. And we got graduations coming up here in a month or so. They're going to be hosting an identity-specific graduation. Students can participate in a Black graduation with the Black Resource Center or a Raza Research Center's Latinx graduation.
What?
That's before the all-campus commencement, by the way. Now, in 2022, this school also had a very specific activities for freshman orientation. Those activities included Black, Latinx, Native American family orientation, and a Black Surf Week, which barred white students and their families. This is according to Campus Reform. Now, I want to know who's separating people by race here. Who are the bigots here?
Separating people by race. I mean, they say they're progressive. This is like regressive.
Yeah.
This is regressive.
No, it is regressive.
We're going back. We're going back to segregation. And it's no shock, though. The person that we've got in the presidency right now actually voted on all kinds of segregation laws and whatnot and voted in favor of segregation laws way back in the day. Joe Biden.
We're also celebrating the anniversary of science, the 3-year anniversary, actually.
The science?
Science.
Tony?
And COVID.
Tony? I'm sorry.
The COVID lockdown nonsense hysteria that swept this country. And this is kind of interesting because one of the things, and I forgot all about this, took place in San Clemente, California, if you remember. There was a skateboard park there. Remember that? The kids were like, hey, well, they got to get outside. They can't be close quarters like this and blah, 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 and wear the mask and yada, yada. So a bunch of the kids started going to the skateboard park just to get outside and do something, right? Couldn't go to school. And the city filled it in with sand. Remember that?
Yeah.
They filled it in with sand so the kids couldn't do it.
Wow.
And then the clowns on surfboards with masks on.
Yeah. That's so fun.
And this
We're
was
still seeing all of that stuff. I still see people, and I'm just like, what are you doing? You're riding a bike outside
with a mask on. Yeah, well, God love them. God bless their little hearts anyway. If you feel better with a mask on, then by all means. All right, Kat. Hey, have a good day today.
You too, Scott Robbins. Have
I'll
a great
catch up
rest of
with
your
you
day.
Tomato. Say hi to your mom for me, too, by the way.
I sure will.
Your mom's a very nice lady. We're Facebook friends, you know.
Yeah, she's a good one.
She's a good one. Yeah,
She's
good
a
mom.
good one.
All right. Talk to you later, Kat.
See you later, Scott Robbins. Scott Robbins and Scott's Takes every morning here on the Morning Buzz. Starts at about 7:35 a.m. I'm going to be back on the other side. We're going to talk about Ron DeSantis coming here to Peoria. That's next. know about this tragic incident so far. I also want to break down the news now. I've got these books, history textbooks, actually already lying about President Donald Trump. They're full of inaccuracies and bias, and it's just so sad to see educational materials be just full of false information. History is truly written by the victors. Greg Price coming out with a Substack and just a little bit about these textbooks, okay? What they're talking about in these textbooks in depth, they cover the unproven sexual misconduct allegations against President Donald Trump and Justice Clarence Thomas, while altogether leaving out any mentions of similar allegations against President Bill Clinton. Also, they left out all the information about Hunter Biden that we know about, him, the coke, the hookers, the Biden laptop. They don't mention any of it. They also leave out all the details about how Trump Russia, this media narrative unraveled. There was no mention of the phony Steele dossier, how the FBI abused the FISA, that's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, to spy on Donald Trump, this illegal unmasking of Michael Flynn, and then how officials like Adam Schiff, they lied to the public about Russian collusion. They lied. And there's no mention in these history textbooks that we're giving to children now. These are approved history books that could be in your classrooms, and your kids could be reading these. They don't talk about Hillary Clinton and how her campaign played a role in feeding false Trump-Russia stories to the press. They don't talk about that at all. They also don't talk about this is interesting. Listen to this. One tech book says this, quote, Donald Trump's message in 2016 appealed successfully to nostalgia for a time when people of color and women knew their place. That Donald Trump tweeting about LeBron James and Maxine Waters lacking intelligence is racist. They called him racist straight up in this history book, this history textbook. And they said because he tweeted about how LeBron James lacked intelligence, that somehow that means he's racist. Well, they also said that, they attribute Trump's victory in 2016 to the angry white men. Then they go into all kinds of lies. And what really bothers me are the conservative leaders in and around our communities, our country, right, who won't stand up against this nonsense. The people on the school boards who claim they're conservative, they will go ahead and approve this college board list of textbooks because it meets the AP course audit, right? They'll go ahead and approve all of these, and you're left scratching your head and you're like, why does my kid hate me because I voted for Donald Trump? It's because they're reading this nonsense in school. So next time your kid comes home and says that they hate you, just remember it's because they're going to public school and you won't pull them out. And it's kind of your fault that they have this ideology, that they think that you're a bad person because you don't go to church on Sundays, because you voted for Donald Trump, or because you won't give them the medical transitioning to become a girl or a boy. And just good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299, or you can see me live in the studio. I'm going to be addressing a couple of these here coming up in just a little bit. I'm going to address these real quick, and then we're going to get to our lovely guest. It's Jim Rule. He's in studio with me. He's the Tazewell County Republican chair, and we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis coming to Peoria, of all places. Wow, so I'm so excited. Let's get to this comment real quick, guys. Abortion isn't killing. So first, this commenter says, where's the protection for the number one killer of children? Guns. And he goes on, he says, guns are okay. Number one killer of children, but no trans because transgender or trans people who have gender dysphoria. Look, folks, it's just true. Okay. People who have gender dysphoria kill themselves at a higher rate than those who killed themselves in the Holocaust during Auschwitz. They would off themselves because of how terrible things were in the Holocaust. And I hate doing Holocaust comparisons because people lose their minds. But to just put this into perspective, if you have gender dysphoria, the likelihood that you will live is like next to zero. I mean, over 70% of people with gender dysphoria commit suicide. Okay? And that's just the facts. Over 60% have comorbidities like eating disorders, emotional disorders, anxiety disorders, you name it. Right? We cannot deny it anymore. The transgender ideology is hurting children. It's hurting children. And this texter is talking about guns and how they're the number one killer of children. That's false. And I've broken this down multiple times on this program. Number one, if anybody ever were to tell you that, the number one killer of children is abortion, first of all. Okay, it kills more children than anybody else, than anything else ever. The other leading causes of death in children, cancer and car accidents. And here's how I come up with that number. They're pushing out this lie that guns are the number one killer of children. The statistics that they are using are children. These are children all the way up to 19 years old. So they include the 19-year-old demographic. And they are not children. They are adults. Okay, 18, 19 years old, that's adults. And we're talking young adults. We're talking teenagers here. And that's the statistic that you are citing right now. And that is misrepresentative of guns being the leading cause in killing children. That's totally not true. When you break it down by age, and when you look at children, actual children, like ages 12 and 13, right? If you look at that number, then the leading cause of deaths is car accidents and cancer. I'll break this down further and I'll pull up my statistics for you, but you're wrong in that you are saying that the guns are the leading cause of death in children. That's completely false. I'm going to break it down here coming up in the 8th, probably about 8:30. We'll unpack that. But right now, I don't want to waste any more time because you know him, you love him. It's Jim Rule. He's the Tazewell County Republican chair. And we're talking about Ron DeSantis coming to Peoria. So how did that even happen, Jim? Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Kat, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You know, it was a long process, but it helps to have a U.S. congressman helping. Darren LaHood was key in getting that. We were originally sitting around coming up with our list, brainstorming, and Ron DeSantis was at the top of my list. We didn't think that we'd get a yes from him, but from sales we always let the customer say no, right? So, but we knew he was going to be in Chicago for a law enforcement event. We went up there. Congressman LaHood went up there, actually presented our invitation, put in a good plug for us, and made the ask. And we got interest, and from there on, the conversation started going and talking, and there were some other Illinois locations that they were considering for an event, but we begged and pleaded, and I'm not below that, So we or I'm not above that anyway, but we got a hard yes.
So why Ron DeSantis? Why do we need him here?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you know, Illinois is sinking, and we are sinking fast in this quagmire that's going on with the progressive left agenda, Marxism. I mean, we see CRTs in the school. We see transgenderism, as you've been talking about. We see, just a racial divide like you wouldn't believe. We've got to do something right now. His Florida blueprint is very successful, and we can glean a lot of things from that and mimic it here in Illinois if we're going to save this state, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, your thoughts on Ron DeSantis going around to different states and speaking. Do you think that he's going to announce some sort of run for the presidency? He hasn't done so yet. And what's really interesting is that there was actually, and not a lot of people caught it, there was a fake announcement just this past week, Disclosed TV. I was following that, and I got the notification that he had announced his 2024 presidency, run for presidency, and I'm like, wait a second. And then I go back, and then they later retracted it, and they said that it was fake.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on the Ron DeSantis presidency? Do you think he's going to win or run?
There's no doubt in my mind. I think he's going to run. He is waiting for the Florida legislature to pass some bills that will allow him to run without having to give up his seat until he's actually declared the winner, if that should materialize for him. Right now, I think if he declares for a run for the presidency, I think he has to give up his seat as governor right now. So the Florida legislature is working on passing some laws to allow him to do that, and I think that's where the holdup is, or the delay. So I may be wrong with that, but that's what my understanding.
I didn't know that.
I do think that he's going to run, and whether you vote for him or not, he adds a lot to the conversation. I mean, he's probably one of the top conservatives in the
He's
political
definitely
landscape
the
right now.
nation's governor.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. He's been very successful down there, so he has a lot to say, and we would be foolish not to listen.
Yeah, and when you see articles done by Politico and by these national news organizations where they pit almost Pritzker and Ron DeSantis up against each other,
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see. I think Governor, and maybe you can weigh in here, Jim, you think Governor Pritzker is going to throw his name into the hat for the 2024 Democrat side of things for the presidential election?
I don't. I don't think he will. I'm not sure he could win. I mean,
well, no, of course not. Well, no. This world's crazy.
This world is crazy. You're absolutely right.
I say things and then I'm like, oh no, that wouldn't happen. And then it happens and then I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a second, that's going on.
No, I don't think Pritzker is what this country's looking for, and especially on the Democrat side. I mean, when you look at the liberal agenda, yeah, he's a far left liberal, but I don't know. I just don't think he's got the moxie to run for president.
See, me, I think that he will throw his name into the hat, but I don't think that his money will beat the money that I think it's just going to be basically a contest between Newsom and Pritzker to see what money they use.
Sure.
Right? And I don't know. I think that he will announce, and here's my prediction. April 19th. Here we go. I think that Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to announce at Highland Park when he, gets this assault weapons ban passed. I would hope that this thing doesn't pass. It's so unconstitutional. It's not even funny. The Second Amendment is under attack here in the state of Illinois.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think once he gets that passed, and it's very likely, being that there's 2 judges right now that refuse to take themselves off of that case, being that Governor J.B. Pritzker is a defendant who gave each of these judges $1 million each.
Yeah.
That's concerning. And I do think that it could pass. It could pass the assault weapons ban. It's extreme, but crazier things have happened. But
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think after that, he's going to try to pivot off of the whole gun violence thing and really try to make a run out of that. And with all of the mass shootings on the rise, he might actually have some ground, but I don't think he'll eventually win. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It'll be fun to watch. That's for sure.
Tell me a little bit about the Tazewell County Republicans. How do we get involved?
Tazewell County Republicans, we do a lot. Our goal, we changed our mission, we changed our vision, we came up with 5 strategic goals. So everything that we do basically is to serve our constituents and to serve the GOP and the people that are working for conservative values. We have a lot of different things going on, whether you want to be a precinct committeeman, whether you want to be a volunteer, whether you want to be an election judge, or if you just want to help out. There's all kinds of things to do in Tazewell County, and we reach out and we do a lot of different activities. We hosted the gubernatorial debate a while back last year. We had all 5. We had 5 of the 6 gubernatorial candidates show up, and that was a successful event. And we have
not Richard Irvin.
What's that?
Richard Irvin didn't show up.
Irvin didn't show up. We put a chair on the stage for him.
Yeah,
and,
that was insane.
And that went viral when Bailey picked it up and asked where he was. But then we have other events like this Lincoln Day Dinner. Our Lincoln Day Dinner is our big annual fundraiser, and it's just designed to get people together and to get people talking. And whether you agree with Ron DeSantis or not, is a chance to join the conversation in a civil way, and take it from here. So yeah, we do a lot over in Tazewell, and I take Connie Beard used to be the chair over here, and Dennis Grundler is now, and they do a fantastic job in McLean County. And they're growing and doing good things.
One thing I want to ask you about is Don Tracy.
Yeah.
Now, Don Tracy, he sent out recently this email going over, the plan moving forward as far as ballot chasing is what he called it. And I don't know. I'm not asking you to rip on Don Tracy. Do you think that the Illinois GOP has the same vision as Tazewell, and are you guys working together? And do you agree on approaches to get the Republicans from out under? Because really, we're under the Democrats' thumb. We don't have majorities anywhere. I mean, I say it all the time. Here in McLean County, it used to be a very deep red county.
Yeah.
And
it was.
Our dog catcher is a Democrat. I'm telling you, Jim. It doesn't matter. These people somehow, some way, managed to get Democrats elected into every single office without fail. They work, they put their heads down. So my question is, do you think the Illinois state, like the GOP party, the state party, do you think that they are out of touch with what some counties want?
I think they are a little bit. I mean, I think Don Tracy is doing the best he can with what he has, but they need to get into the counties a little bit more. They need to talk to us a little bit more. And interesting enough, this very same conversation came up on Monday night in our Republican County Chairman's Association meeting. And there are a number of us who feel that the unity message that's coming out of the Illinois GOP, while it's a unity message, it's somewhat weak right now. It's not, people aren't buying into it.
Yeah, the big tent, unify the party.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know if people are willing to. And the best example I have here, Kathleen Lorenz, Andy Byers, a lot of people here locally, Andy Byers, I think even at one point sat on a Republican board, and these people are not standing up for Republican values.
Yeah.
They are voting for tax increases every single time. Andy Byers is a big proponent of green energy, which we as conservatives aren't opposed to, but the infrastructure isn't there. We just saw solar panels combust on top of the Olympia High School malfunction, right? I mean, and that's just one tiny little, isolated incident to speak to the infrastructure not being there and pushing the mining of lithium and these dangerous materials. Yeah. And we're not even listening to the people. I mean, I think it's over 90% of people, 90% of Americans say they won't drive an electric vehicle. Like, are we
Right.
even listening to people and what they actually care about? And Andy Byers pushes this. I mean, he's a lobbyist for green energy companies.
Yeah.
And he works on behalf of a lobbying firm that gives money to Jay Inslee, who just passed this bill. Jay Inslee just signed a bill saying, yeah, we can do state-sanctioned state-sanctioned kidnapping, essentially, where 12-year-old kids can leave their parents' home and they can go to these state-hosted homes where they can leave their parents if they think that their parents aren't giving them the medical transitioning to become transgender. So this whole bill, right? And he works for a lobbying firm that supports this sort of thing, obviously, because they gave thousands of dollars to Governor Jay Inslee, a prominent Democrat. So it's just like, I'm scratching my head, and whenever Don Tracy comes out and says unify the party, I'm not interested. Right. I don't want Andy Byers or somebody like a Kathleen Lorenz who continuously votes to increase taxes. I don't want them in the Republican. And I think that the Republicans have to do something more, maybe, and maybe you guys have this at the county level, to define what the party stands for.
Well, that's exactly right, Kat, right there. I mean, we talk about what we're going to do, what we're going to do, what we need to do, what we're going to do, what we need to do, but we don't do it. So we're at the point where we need to define very clearly what the Republican platform is, what we stand for, and what are those things that we're going to perhaps maybe bend a little bit on so that we can bring more people, more understanding, more people into the tent, right? But we've got to define who we are as a party, and we've got to start talking about it a little bit more, and we've got to get the people that have all these personal agendas out of the party, because they're doing a lot of harm and a lot of damage. So, and that's going to take all of us.
I think this is clearly defining where the Tazewell County and the Peoria County Republicans stand, having a keynote speaker like Ron DeSantis. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how we can get tickets to attend the 2023 Lincoln Day Dinner.
Tickets can be obtained through our website, Tazewell County. It's TazewellGOP.org. TazewellGOP.org. And on there, if you just go to our calendar and scroll down, you'll see a couple different events for the Ron DeSantis, for the Lincoln Day Dinner. There are some sponsorships that if people want to get involved that way. Or if you just want to buy a ticket, they're $85 a piece. And we try to keep that price low so that more and more people could attend. It's going to be held at the Peoria Civic Center on May 12th. That's a Friday night. And there'll be a social hour that starts at 5:30. I'll call for people to sit down around 6:15, and hopefully by 6:30 we'll be starting the events of the evening.
Okay, so how do we get is there like a website?
Yeah, TazewellGOP.org. If you go there, and there's a QR code you can click on, it'll take you to the WinRed site where you can register everything they need to know. Will be right there. There's also just a regular link if they want to hook up to the link.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Jim Rule from the Tazewell County Republicans.
Thanks for having me, Kat.
I appreciate it. All right, folks, we'll be back on the other side. I've got a couple things I want to hit. Specifically, I want to unpack the Kansas City shooting. I'm going to reveal everything that I know about this tragic incident. I've got the probable cause statements, and one thing you got to know is nobody else in the media is going to give you the information I'm about to give you coming up in about 5 minutes. Okay, completely stupid. So I shot back at this guy who says that guns are the leading cause, and this is just so not true. They are not the number one killer of children, and I'm going to debunk that here in just a second. First things first, abortion is actually the leading cause of, or the number one killer of children. So that should always be your argument whenever you're presented with somebody who says something like this. Um, he shoots back. He says abortion isn't killing people that are living and in school. Okay, first of all, I can argue that children are living in the womb. There is life. Way to move the goalpost by redefining what abortion is. Typical. You people don't care about kids. Nice. So there was, I think actually it was John Stewart who claimed that the leading cause of death among children was firearms. That's what John Stewart said. It's firearms more than cancer, more than car accident, but it isn't. And I'm probably one of the only conservatives, um, like who will come out and just totally debunk this, because a lot of conservatives will break down and they won't know what to say when somebody says that. Um, One, abortion is the leading cause of death in children. That's the number one. Number two, among the born children of this nation, drowning tops the list for an age group of 1 to 4. So drowning, in when you break it down by ages, 1 to 4. For ages 5 to 14, cancer and vehicle accidents are actually the leading cause of mortality. Um, the number one and number two killers have children ages 5 to 14 is exactly what John Stewart said it wasn't. So John Stewart said it wasn't vehicle accidents or cancer. Cancer and car crashes are in fact the number one killer for children's aged 5 to 14. The statistics that this person is using is lumping in people who are 18 and 19 years old, and those are adults. There was a study where they tried to lump in adults, 18 and 19. Those are young adults. I will give you that. Those are young adults. But they also don't break that down of what kind of violence that is. Is it suicides? Is it gang violence, right? So they don't break that down. Um, you're reading statistics from the left. You have to take a step further and question definitions. How do they define children? And 1 through 19, I mean, come on. This is the Kaiser Family Foundation study. I'm sure that you're citing here, leftists. Um, and you're wrong. You're just flat out wrong. 18 and 19 years old are not considered children. So let's take a step back here, okay, Levi, whatever your name is. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I totally just debunked a leftist in real time. It was so fun on the YouTube channel. You guys can check out that video on our YouTube. You can like, subscribe. Look, the leading cause of death in children is not, in fact, guns. That's just not true. When you break it down by age, ages 1 to 4, the leading cause of death in children, 1 to 4, age group 1 to 4, is actually drowning. That tops the list. Then you break it down ages 5 to 14, that's cancer and vehicle accidents. With these leftist studies, you have to ask yourself constantly, how do they define these terms? Because the left is always changing the definitions of, so they changed the definition of children. And in this Kaiser Foundation study that a lot of Kaiser Family Foundation study that a lot of leftists use to say that guns are the leading cause of death in children in this country, include 18 and 19 year olds. 18 and 19 years old. It goes from 1 through 19. That's how this study that you're citing right now looks at children. And you need to understand the facts here. those are teenagers, right? So from 14, even 13 to 14, children, I believe, right, and how it's always been defined, 1 to 12. Teens, that's ages 13 all the way through 19, right? That are teenagers. And then it also needs to be said where this gun violence is coming from. Is it coming from states? Are they breaking it down by state? Are we looking at Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, New Orleans? Because I bet the leading cause of death in teenagers in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Chicago, St. Louis, I bet that it is. It has to deal with homicides using guns. I bet it is gang violence amongst teenagers, right? Also, overdoses among teens are up in this country. But to sit there and say that kids are being gunned down and that that's the leading cause of death in children in the United States is just false. It's just not true. And I'm glad that I could have debunked that for you. If you want my resources and if you want my the studies that I'm citing, I will gladly send those to you. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz, and I don't want to waste any more time. We've got Kevin Woodard in studio. Let's talk about it. We'll hit normal really quick. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. They're getting this new firehouse, and this is after 40 years. So are they replacing a firehouse on the east side of Normal, Kevin?
Yeah, they're replacing an older firehouse, and the new location helps them meet their minimum times that they need to respond. Some of the response times in some parts of Normal up around 9 minutes. The reason they chose the new location is it gets everything down to about 5 minutes for everybody. And it's important in fires, but it's probably even more important in responding to heart attacks.
So they're going to keep both in Normal.
No, they'll close the old one when they're finished here.
Close the old one. Okay, I see. So this is going to be the new headquarters for the fire department.
It's not the new headquarters. It's new fire station 2.
New fire station 2. So it's only going to be, because as far as I know, there's only one in Normal right now, right?
They got 3.
They have 3?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So where's the headquarters located at right now?
I don't exactly know myself. Sorry about that, but it is new. It's just been completed in recent years.
Okay. So at the council meeting, they were talking about replacing this. Normal has been constructing a new fire station on its east side, and that's going to cost near $5 million. So where's the money coming from, Kevin?
Well, $1 million was from, I think they said, cash in the bank. $1 million was from a grant that Dan Brady helped provide to them. And then about 2.9 was going to come from the general fund. But we did find a story that was written a couple of years ago. I believe it was 2.5 that they took loans out for a couple of years ago. So I guess that's the 2.5 they're saying in the general fund. I'm not sure. I read that after I had talked with Pam Reese.
I see. So the $2.9 million coming from the general fund. They did take out a loan from Busey Bank in 2022, according to the Vidette. There was a story there. Yeah, I'm hoping that's where they put that money into the general fund, and that's why they're taking it out of the general fund. I don't know.
I don't know that they're hiding anything. After I read it, I'm just kind of thinking that, she avoided mentioning that, Pam Reese. I mean, maybe she wasn't thinking at the time. Maybe she was, maybe what she told me was just straight out about where the money is right now. I mean, I didn't ask her to go into a history on it or anything, but apparently they borrowed the money a couple of years ago, and then the economy with inflation and everything kind of slowed things down, and now they think they can go ahead and do this project.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting, and what I thought was hilarious, and here's when I was reading this story, here's my take on it. This is so funny. Kathleen Lorenz, she wants to reach out to the nearby residents of this fire station, right, and get their feedback about the design. And what I find hilarious about this is that, people will say, oh, she urged the council to get public feedback. And here's the actual quote here, folks. When we were first selecting the location, of course, it got a lot of attention from neighbors. I'm not all suggesting that we revisit these conversations, but I am suggesting or asking that we do look for ways to design a process to engage the neighbors nearby. So she, was like, oh, we're looking for, we're not going to actually create a committee or anything like that as far as getting public feedback about the design of the station. And, because this is right next to the Blackstone subdivision, and the subdivision was a meeting. The choice of property was met with some objection from the people within the subdivision, the Blackstone Trails subdivision. And Kathleen Lorenz points out that there should be some feedback, but hey, let's just trust the experts on this anyway. And yeah, I mean, this was a classic politician to me. When I read this, I'm like, this is a classic politician move where they're like, yeah, let's include public feedback, but like also let's just listen to the experts and like let's pretend that we're giving the public actual feedback, affording them the ability to give feedback.
Well, I mean, that was more than just some neighbors objecting. That was a pretty big thing a couple of years ago. They really didn't want it on the corner that was developed where their subdivision is. They didn't care if it went on any of the other three corners. They just basically wanted it across the street from them and not immediately adjacent to their subdivision. The problem with that was that the corner the houses are on is the corner that had services to everything. So it would have cost the town of Normal a lot more to provide services to the other three lots. So, I mean, it was planned to be a fire station there, I believe, and it was, in my mind, the best place to put it. But I think what Kathleen is saying is we know these people are disappointed that this is going to be going in here. I guess disappointed to say the least. But I think she was saying we're not going to go revisit the location, but let's involve them in talking about some things as we go through the design. And what that means to me is, what kind of barriers there might be, whether there'll be a fence or whether greenery or things like that between especially the people that may have homes adjacent to that lot with the fire station.
Let's move on. We're going to talk about Carlock Elementary. This school, the future of it remains in the balance. We've been hearing it here from Tom Davis in the newscast. Kristen Weichel on tape saying, well, the board didn't take any action on Carlock. That was something that if we had to continue to make reductions down the road. So based on that comment, right, is Carlock going to be shut down? We don't know.
Well, it's no need to. They're not good. They're not at this point. They're not looking to do it in the next 2 years. There are some issues with Carlock. It's a small school. They kind of look at it like there's not room to expand, but there actually probably is room to expand. Not in the inside building. The building's used to full capacity, but there is room there. They do have some property there where that school could be expanded. And I think that's what, like the mayor of Carlock is kind of looking to see if maybe they can't do something like that. Rhonda Bear. It's I think everybody that's involved with it knows that it's still something that's going to come up in the future when they talk about the best uses of buildings and where the children need to go to take care of some overcrowding at some places. There's going to be shift changes. That's just something that happens in schools. District lines move and buildings get old, have to be replaced, and that's still going to be coming to us.
My first gut reaction, and I talked about this a little bit, this is my take on the story, folks. Unit 5, they've got this Carlock school here, and it's very important to remember that this tax increase passed without any kind of knowledge whether or not they were, in fact, going to roll back the cut athletic programs and the cut extracurricular programs and the cutting of Carlock school, right? There was not an assumption, right, if you voted yes for this thing, that those things would be restored, that those cuts would be restored. When I read this, I thought to myself, well, Carlock is a rural school. I also know the numbers and the statistics surrounding the vote that happened in the fall. And I knew that the district there, the Carlock voters, right, were not too favored, did not favor the tax referendum. And this is really interesting. And I'm just kind of looking at this here. A quote from the Carlock mayor, we're certainly going to make an effort to engage more with the Unit 5 board going forward. So Carlock, being a rural school, probably keeps itself outside of the politics with the Unit 5 school district and is a little bit of an anomaly. And my gut reaction, speculation, they closed this Carlock school. It's going to be because y'all voted it down, voted that tax referendum down in the fall. That's my gut reaction to this. This is the writing I see on the wall. And that's my take. I don't I'm all for closing the schools, all public schools, all of them. I think that they should all be shut down. And I know that a lot of you live in Carlock, and I know that a lot of you take your kids to the elementary school, and not to mention Carlock Elementary, number 7 out of the 16 elementary schools in the district. They're actually performing better than at least some of the district or some of the schools within the district. And you're on the chopping block because of why exactly? I don't know. Why didn't they close a different school? I think it's a targeting. I think it's targeting a rural community who voted the tax referendum down in 2022 when it was first out there. Now, I don't know what the numbers are as far as what that area voted for this last go around.
Well, they actually supported it this time, and they supported it enough that if you look at the two together, it's now, if you combine the two and looked at it, you would come up with just that the community supported it slightly more than it voted against it. So I think it brought out a lot more people in that area that wanted to save their school, but not as many as you might have expected, or not as many as I expected, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're closing it down because it's revenge. It's revenge. That's my take. That was my first gut reaction to this. Folks, 309-451-9299. We have got to take a break. On the other side, we'll be back. I'm going to go through a couple more national stories and headlines for you that you need to know about. I do want to debunk what's going on in the media right now and give you the facts surrounding the Kansas City shooting out of Missouri. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me here on Cities 92.9. Folks, I've got to tell you, I've got to unpack what's going on here as far as this Ralph Yarl case. I want to break down the Kansas City shooting and reveal everything I know about this tragic incident so far. I think that I here at Cities 92.9 will always tell you the truth and provide you facts. Here is how the media is reporting it. Here we go.
City man is now facing 2 felony charges, and if found guilty, life in prison after a shooting that has grabbed the nation's attention. According to family and lawyers for 16-year-old black teenager Ralph Yarl, it happened when he was trying to pick up his brothers one night last week. They say he accidentally rang the wrong doorbell, and the man inside shot him in the head and the arm. He had to run to 3 different houses before someone would help him. That has led to protests over the weekend and a massive outpouring of support on social media. A GoFundMe for Yarl's hospital bill has surpassed $2 million. He has been released from the hospital, thank goodness, but has a long recovery ahead.
This shouldn't be a national news story. It just shouldn't be a national news story. And the reason why it is a national news story is because they want to create racial tension. Now, everybody's talking about it and they want you to focus on the the race narrative. And when it comes to these situations, you have to figure out what happened. So here I have the probable cause statements. Nobody else is going to give you this information. This happened April 13th, late at night, Kansas City, Missouri. Upon arrival, they found one male victim, that male victim being Ralph Yarl. Now, there was a party who called in to 911, and they said that they believed that the man who was shot was a home invader. Now, Andrew Lester, he's 84 years old. He called the police after firing 2 shots. Now, Lester consented to the search after firing these 2 shots, and here's what the officers say they observed when they were doing a search after the incident. The officer wrote, quote, "I observed the front storm door glass was broken with blood on the front porch. I observed blood in the driveway. I observed cameras on the south and east side of the residence. I also saw blood on the front door of the neighbor's house, the neighbor of Lester. The witness who was interviewed, they had heard an unknown vehicle pull up into the driveway of the address for Lester, and the witness said that it was odd that this elderly neighbor of theirs was getting a visitor this late at night. Now, the witness stated that they heard 2 to 3 gunshots from the address. The witness also stated that they heard the victim yell out and that he had been shot. Now, they observed the victim. At this point, these witnesses, right, who are giving their account to the police, they observed the victim at that point, saw the victim going door to door, Ralph going door to door, asking for help after he was shot. Up to that point, they had only heard everything. They heard the gunshots. They didn't see the actual shooting itself. And I thought to myself, wait, he saw cameras? The cops saw cameras? Well, it turns out that the system was not functional. So there's no footage, no video footage of this. Now, Lester, the 84-year-old man, talked to the police. And now this is important. This is the account of the police. This is not a transcript from Lester. This is not exactly what he said. But according to the police, this is what Lester said in this probable cause statement. He stated that he had just laid down and then he heard the doorbell ring and he grabbed his gun. It's a .32 Smith & Wesson 1888 revolver, and then he's opened the interior door. He stayed within his residence and opened the interior door and saw this 6-foot man pulling on the exterior door, and he said that he believed that this man was trying to break into his house. He stated that he opened the interior door and then shot twice within a few seconds of opening that interior door. Now, this is not the transcript of Lester himself. We remember the Kyle Rittenhouse story. Kyle Rittenhouse, there was a lot that was left out of that transcript. This is a statement that was given from the police to the prosecutor. This is not the phrasing of Lester. There's so much to be unpacked here. And Lester said he was scared to death at this man's size, his age, repeatedly expressed concern to the man he had shot. Even the cops let Lester go because they said that he had probable cause or some sort of reason, some sort of justifiable shooting at one point, but then they came back and they continued to investigate. Folks, I've got to go. If you want more content, you can go to YouTube. You can also go to Facebook. I'll do it again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. I love you.